The issue of the strategic security of Africa is very crucial. East African Federation, I'm glad the East African leaders have never given up. Even when we were last in Arusha, they appointed me as an advocate for the Federation, so that we are able to unite our land space, unite our sea space, have more resources to be able to build capacity in the 4 dimensions: on land, at sea, in the air, and in the space.
The world is changing fast, and Africa is dangerously unprepared. After the US attack on Venezuela, President Museveni of Uganda issues a blunt warning that every African must hear. This is not a theory. It is about power, survival, and who controls the future. Subscribe to Africa Unchained now, because what you are about to hear explains why Africa cannot afford to stay distracted any longer.
Venezuela, I don't know what they are fighting for. I'm still watching, studying it. The Americans are saying that some of the Latin Americans are sending drugs to the US. But whatever the case, we shall find out, we shall learn more. But whatever the case is, you can see the gaps which I'm telling you about. Because the Americans are operating from 4 dimensions. They're operating from sea, they're in the sea. The Latin Americans are not there. They don't have a navy. Then they can come with air force, and then space. They're in space. Now they are trying to come on land, which of course is very risky also for the Americans. There you come near, because even me, who has got a short range, I can harm you. But there you are at an advantage. You are seeing me in space. I'm not seeing you. You're in the ocean. I'm not there. I'm here. So the issue of the strategic security of Africa is very crucial. East African Federation, I'm glad the East African leaders have never given up. Even when we were last in Arusha, they appointed me as an advocate for the Federation, so that we are able to unite our land space, unite our sea space, have more resources to be able to build capacity in the 4 dimensions: on land, at sea, in the air, and in the space. Go to space. We must go to space. We can't remain here when other people are in space and you think we are clever. Dancing and watching European football clubs. It's very, very risky for you people. So you should wake up and wake up the young. Yes, the young generation should have pleasure, but also they must have security, a secure future. And they have all the potential, because like East Africa is very strong. Because we can use Swahili. They are the same groups. You have Kenyans like Nyangweso, that Nyangweso is a Kenyan, he's here. All those Sanyas are from Kenya. Then we have Congolese, also here, Banyarwanda, they are all. So East Africa is a very powerful unit for the black race. Yes, you can have small countries in the world, like in Denmark, but they all have a center of gravity. When they're in trouble, there's a big boy like the US to defend them. Now the African race have no center of gravity. And you are here just dancing in Pakachin, dancing in Pakachin. Very risky very risky. I was young like you. I would also dance, swing guards like this. But I would also remember to fight. Fight, study, fight, work, and dance once in a while. But the problem is that you are now dancing all the time. Like Latin America, you can see Latin America the way it is happening. Why is Latin America miserable? And yet in terms of natural resources, it's actually much richer than the United States. If you look at the water, you look at the minerals, you look at the forests, Latin America is richer than the United States. Why should the United States be more prosperous than Latin America? Because of that difference of integration. When the American colonists separated from England, they formed the nucleus of the United States. The 13 colonies, they formed the nucleus, then they have been adding on. That's why in America you can easily succeed if you are a businessman. Because if you are in New York, you produce a product, you can sell it all the way up to California. 300 million people. Now in Latin America, you are in Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, you are here, if you produce a product, you can't, how will you succeed? Here in Africa, if I produce a product to go to here, I must negotiate, to go there, I must negotiate. That's why we had to try and revive this African community. Now, but there's also the issue of strategic security. That's why for us we support the Federation of East Africa. Because as we speak today, the Americans are on the moon. The Chinese are on the moon. The Russians are on the moon. The Indians have gone to the moon. You fellows, we are here on Earth, here. The Europeans are looking at us from space like they are seeing us, we don't see them. This is very dangerous. And you have all these Katendes, all these fellows, influencers. What are you influencing? Why don't you say, you people, you are in danger? People are on the moon, we are here. They are seeing us, we don't see them. But can Uganda and the Americans, they have been saying so openly, they say for them, they want to be superior in land forces, superior on land, superior at sea, the Navy, superior in Air Force, superior in space. Where does that leave Africa? Africans are here, dancing Pakachina. Yes, you dance if you want, but please, look at your future. Where is your future? How will you be safe? How will you be safe in the world? Huh? So that's why you can bring my tablet. Can you bring my picture? Nukuli. I'm lucky to see this Gen Z wanange. Let me see me wanange. Let me find change. Bring my picture. Banang katonda jari. abakuru bano bonna bali wano. That's why we was talking of the East African, for economic prosperity, it must be economic integration in East Africa and the whole of Africa, a common market of Africa. We need a common market of Africa. We have started, and it's what we call CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, so that we can trade, the market is there. Ate wewe ya Africa wano n'abantu abalala obewuunya. The Chinese are 1.5 billion inside China. But you find the Chinese dying for more markets. But now akawumbikamu ukadebikumi bina mu China. Mwate balwana nakatala kafe akaba abantu milioni 5. Somebody with 1.4 billion people is still hungry for more market. You, of a small number, you are not even bothered. Yeah, dance back at you, dance back at you. Are you not an endangered species? Why don't you see that? Why would the China get worried? Yet he has already got 1.4 billion people inside Abamugurako. Nange mwongereko sente mukasawo yange mwongereko. You are not bothered, you are just seeing. So that is for economic prosperity, but there is a strategic security. Because with the economic integration of East Africa, of the common market of Africa, we shall deal with the economy. Businessmen will have a market where to sell, and they will invest more. And if they invest more, they create jobs, the jobs we are talking about. Because if I'm a businessman, I sell more, I expand, I create more jobs. But that one does not address the issue of army. Because the common market doesn't involve army. Defense. We need an African political unit that can guarantee the defense of the black race. That's why we have been talking for the last 60 years of the East African Federation. East Africa would have the capacity to go to the moon and check on what those fellows are doing there. The moon is a common property. Mukora chiwano kumwezi. Nefe katuli wano tuli dance mpaka chini. People on the moon, they are looking at us like babite ebinyomo, these insects which eat sugar. The insects, emunyo bete chumurugana. Warwe bibuka ebiria sukari. Ebinyomo. Tuli wano ebinyomo batulengera bulengezi. Oyinza kuleta dumu n'ofuuyira lufu. N'ebifo byonna n'okutegeera tibitegeedde ani abisi. So this is very dangerous. When you hear America, the people who you call Americans now are Europeans who went and took the land of the Indians. Because the Indians were stupid, they were not organized. And the Europeans had already tried to take our land. Those who came to South Africa, they are taking the land. In South Africa, in Zimbabwe, even here in Kenya, in the 1950s, we were learning of something they were calling the White Highlands. Part of Kenya was regarded as White Highlands. That's what they were teaching us. But what happened at that time, there were changes in the world which favored us. by 1900, the whole of Africa had been colonized. Our stupid chiefs had failed to defend us because they were fighting among themselves. So the whole of Africa had been colonized. But what happened was that in 1912, the Africans in South Africa formed the first resistance movement, the ANC. They formed modern people now. Actually, it started in the US, the black people there. Some of them started Pan-Africanism. There was a man called Marcus Garvey, another one called something else, I've forgotten their name, W.B. Du Bois. They started talking about African freedom, African freedom. When the whole of Africa had been colonized, except for Ethiopia. So in 1912, the Africans formed the ANC to resist. Then in 1917, we had good luck. Russia was taken over by communists. These are where people who had a different idea. They didn't agree with imperialism. The communists, they took over Russia. So they started working with our anti-colonial fighters. And then also, African witchcraft worked. Because the Europeans, because of their greed, started fighting among themselves. The First World War. Our African magic worked. They started fighting among themselves. The Germans and the British and all that group. And they mobilized our grandparents to go and fight for them. So our grandparents went and saw, oh, okay, this is how you fight with modern arms. So by the time they ended this First World War, their quarrels didn't end. Then they started the Second World War. That was even worse for them. By that time, they were so weak that countries like India had to get independence. Because they were not only colonizing us, they were colonizing also Asia. Asia, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, all those were colonies. So by the end of the Second World War, they were so weak, they couldn't keep India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Africa was also on the way. Now, then 1949, China was taken over by communists. So the anti-imperialist bloc was very, very big and powerful. That's how they had to give up, say, be independent. But otherwise, really what they wanted was to do like what happened in America, where the indigenous people either disappear completely or survive as second class. So that's why this is what I cannot accept. You can see these wonderful people, my children, my grandchildren, you people. I want you to be free people. So I can't compromise on that. And because of that, we started fighting with our own fools here. We were wasting our time. I mean, what? Talk. You don't know what you are doing, and that he wants to be our president, Idi Amin. But you don't know what you are doing. And we are in a war with serious people. Then you come here as a joker to waste our time. Get out. Talk. So that's really the motivation. Freedom for the black race. freedom for the black race, insurance, freedom and insurance of freedom for the black race. Now, about stamina and so on, this is partly also because of, I think I was lucky, because my family, because the African people are very strong. The problem are the kings, the ones who are really wasting our time. The rulers are the ones who waste our time. But otherwise, Africans are very strong, especially in this area here. You can read what Stanley wrote. Those are explorers who came here, Huntington Speak, Stanley, they wrote, said, these Africans, these fellows are advanced, who are advanced. Agriculture, bananas, cows. The problem was just our rulers who were always fighting one another, full of themselves, king, what. Then they divide us. But otherwise, the communities are very strong. Now, the luck I had was that my family never got involved so much in the colonial system, was never involved in the colonial system. My great-grandfather was alive when the Europeans came. He died, I think, around 1915. He never joined the church. He kept with his cows. He didn't join the colonial system. He didn't join the church. He died in 1915. Then my grandfathers were there. They were rich traditional people. They never went into the churches. They never joined the colonial system. They remained with the cows. They died, I think the last died around 1943 there. It was Kaguta who was the first person to go into the church. And by that time I was there myself also, so I went with him as a junior member, and we joined the church in 1947. But even when we joined, we remained traditional. See, traditional people are very strong. They are not very strong. Stamina, looking after cows, what. So things you find, even when I was joined the army, what they were doing in the army was much weaker than my lifestyle. As cattle keeper, you are very, very tough. So it's just luck, because I think if I had joined the chapati eating and all that, it may have been different. But I'm an original Minyankore who knows English and has studied the world. This is the advantage really about the stamina. My uncles have just died. They were one of them died at 104 years. Another, Kaguta died when he was 97. But for most of the time, he was looking after the cows. Even in the 90s, he would go and these children were seeing him. He was looking after the cows. So it is that tradition. If you can imagine the Karamojong, if he doesn't become disoriented, he is a very strong person. That lifestyle there is gives you stamina. So the culture should. I had a discussion with the Naba Gereka, and she was trying to talk about the culture. I say, yes, we can audit it. We can audit the culture and see some of the practices which are out of date and remove them, but keep the others which are very strong. So I think it is that combination, the motivation to make sure that you don't become slaves, we don't become slaves, and then secondly, the stamina is from the historical accident of a traditional man arriving in the city. Because they had never seen traditional people. They had people who had become like westernized. I'm not westernized. I'm an original Minyankore who just arrived in the town here when I came to Mbarara, 1959 for junior secondary. That was my first time to go from the village to the town and to see rice, all this. And for us, we didn't like those things. Rice, we were giving it a bad name. We were stuck with our things. Even now I eat my mhogo. I don't eat rice. So that is the...
And for us, the chapati eaters, what is our hope?
But remember that millet is there. You can come back to millet, you can come back. Because me, I eat millet. They know. I eat millet, I eat muhogo. I eat our food. I don't eat European foods.
The Coordinating Bureau of the Non-Aligned Movement, NAM, categorically condemns the act of aggression perpetuated by the United States of America against the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela since the early hours of 3rd January 2026, which included armed attacks against civilian and military locations in the capital city of Caracas, as well as in various other cities of the Venezuelan territory. The Coordinating Bureau of the Non-Aligned Movement notes that attacks in question, which blatantly violate the purposes and the principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, as well as the norms of the international law, constitute an act of war against the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela that undermines both regional and international peace, security, and stability, while also threatening the very right to life of the Venezuelan people. Excuse me. The Coordinating Bureau of the Non-Aligned Movement demands the immediate cessation of all hostilities against the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela, the full respect of the sovereignty, territorial integrity, political independence, and inalienable rights to the self-determination of Bolivian Republic of Venezuela, and that those responsible for those ongoing acts of aggression to be held accountable.
This message is more than history, more than politics. It is a mirror placed before Africa. President Museveni's words reminds us that freedom is never given. It is prepared for, protected, and defended. Africa Unchained exists to tell this truth without fear, to connect the dots across the continent, and to awaken the African mind. If this message moved you, do not watch in silence. Subscribe to Africa Unchained, turn on the notification bell, and join a growing community that refuses ignorance, dependency, and distraction. Africa's future is unfolding now. Do not miss a moment.